The end customer is looking for you to restore their property. Okay. They don't care if on what your P&L looks like for your company. They just want to have their property restored. They want to know the process. They want to be in the know. They want to have a seamless process because they've never done this before and their life is a mess at that time. They don't care about all the other stuff that goes into running a property damage restoration company. And if you can focus your efforts on that, I feel that you're going to be successful.
Welcome to the Restoration Playbook Podcast. Today we're joined by Keegan Trudgen, multi-location owner at PuroClean Disaster Services, to discuss how to bring technology into the workers' hands and how it helps them improve customer experience, job satisfaction, and more. To kick things off, I wanted to give Keegan an opportunity to introduce himself and talk about the experiences that have brought him to the position that he's in. Let's dive in.
My name is Keegan Trudgen. My partners and I own 10 PuroClean franchises in 4 different states currently, 5 different metro areas, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Texas. We've been with PuroClean for a little over 10 years, like 11 years now, almost. In August, it'll be 11 years. So about myself, so I'm originally from the Midwest, Michigan, and I studied finance in college. After college, I went to work for Intel, and that is a great organization. In the early 2000s, I worked there, and that formed a lot of my understanding of how business is done and how business can be done. They really turned over every rock in their processes to really optimize everything. After that, I got a little homesick, so I moved back to the Midwest, back to Chicago, and worked for a few companies there, a smaller company called Follett, and that's integral because it's where I met my future business partner, Matt Tushband. And I worked there. I worked for Morgan Stanley. I worked for Discover Financial Services. And along the way, I helped a few friends with their entrepreneurial ventures. Oh, and then during that time, I got my MBA from Northwestern because, why not? I add more tools to the toolbox. That was a great experience. So in 2012, I was at Discover. I was running running a portion of their market research group. And we were trying to win the JD Power Award for customer service. And if you've ever taken an hour-long survey about your credit card, it's as boring as you think it would be. So nothing against that. Some people love doing that, but it wasn't for me. And I called up my buddy, Matt Tushband, who I worked with at Follett, who had started a PuroClean franchise. And I said, hey, who got you into that business? Because I think I'd like to go do my own thing. It's about time. I have all the tools I need and I was in a good spot. So called him up and he said, well, I'll give you the business broker's name. He's a great guy. But my wife got a job at the Home Depot in Atlanta and we're moving to Atlanta. Do you want to buy my business? And I said, no, I don't know anything about your business. I'm not going to just go ahead and buy it. So we came to an agreement. He said, how about you manage the business? And I said, sure, I'll manage it. I'll see if I like it. If I like it, maybe I can buy it at that time. If not, I can go do something else. Right. So that was the plan. I got into the business in 2012 and fell in love with the industry. I really like that you're helping people. My family's in kind of the medical healthcare field. My one sister's a doctor. My other sister's a nurse anesthesiologist. So really medical focused, helping people. And anyway, I fell in love with the industry. I still believe it's a great industry to be in from the economic standpoint of it. And anyway, so here we are. The one thing, I guess this is my chance to brag. The one thing that is kind of what I'm known for at PuroClean, at least, is that in shortly after I started, I had this crazy idea of opening a second location. And at the time, all PuroCleans were just single locations. So I put together a presentation, showed it to Steve White, Mark Davis of the executive team, and said, hey, I think we should let PuroClean franchises get another location. And here's the benefits to the franchisee. Here's the benefits to PuroClean. And that has been super successful. I think it's like 60 some franchisees now own multiple units based on that presentation that I put forth. And it was all because I wanted to service clients down in the southern part of Chicago. We're in the northern part of Chicago. And it just made sense to me, if we're local, if we're involved in the community, if we're rapid response, to be closer to my customers. And the reason to open one down there is because if I were to go and just market our services, they would say, where are you from? They cheer for a different baseball team down there on the south side than they do the north side. So anyway, so that's kind of a little bit about me. I don't know.
Yeah,
You want to know anything else? Anything else you want to know?
Hey, there's a lot there, and I'm very satisfied with what I found under that rock because, I knew that you had, I knew about the experience with Intel, and we'll talk about John Doerr and all this stuff in a second here, right? And I bet I bet a lot of people look at your business, Keegan, and they say, "Oh man, like this guy's building an empire." And I bet you look at it, and you probably feel pride, but I bet you see lots of opportunities for improvement and optimization. And so, just could you give us just an example of some of the projects that you're working on that you're excited about that you think hold a lot of opportunity for your network of locations?
Yeah. So, we're in 5 metro areas, and this industry is so big that, if we got 1% market share in any of those, we'd be 10x our size. I mean, the industry is just so huge from a standpoint. If you think of all the claims that insurance carriers pay out, if you just look at the insurance where, not even like self pays from property management companies or whatnot, it's just a huge market, right? And then the other thing is, if you look at expansion into all the markets, within, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours of any place we are now, that is a major population center, like, I don't know, 150,000 population or more. It's just, we could put tons more dots on the map to service way more communities that we're not in right now. So just using our processes and technology that we'll talk about in a minute, to take those best practices and just copy exactly. So when I worked for Intel, I worked in the manufacturing division with all the huge fabs in Arizona and all over the world. And they had a copy exactly mindset. So you could take any technician and put them in, blindfold them, fly them wherever, put them in any fab. They could walk in and know exactly where everything is. They could do the same exact job at any location because they were built 100% identical.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. And so what you're telling me is that all 10 locations, you've built them exactly the same.
Well, we tried.
I know.
And
Well,
we're still trying to get there, right? We want to make sure that the process is as similar as possible.
Mhm.
And the other interesting thing and kind of idea that I've been thinking about, and this might be another chapter in your book, but question is, how do you create a great customer experience when you are not controlling the where you're doing the work at, right? So you are going, in our industry, we go to the job, and we have no control over what we're going to find. So every job is different, and there's a lot of differences, but the end result in a lot of aspects has to be the same, right? Because people expect consistency, and that's how you deliver a great customer experience time after time. Is if the end result is consistency, they'll love it, right? And your customer could be the property. It's all three. It's the property owner, it's the insurance carrier or whoever's paying the bill, and it's whoever referred you the work, right? Those three stakeholders really want a consistent experience every time.
Right. That's a great topic. I'm very bullish on companies that optimize for customer experience. I think the customer is the dance partner for contractors to be able to keep the market balanced in the flood of private equity and carrier dynamics right now. I think that man, like, okay, I'm going to try to manage our time here to leave some time for that because
Yep.
I'm very hot on that. And I know I can just give me your reaction to this because you think about this, I think about this. I think that one of the things that is common is that a customer, or let's call it a policyholder or property holder, whether they're commercial or residential, they don't have that many losses, unless you live in Florida. And maybe you have like 3. But most people may only experience 1 to maybe 2 significant property damage claims, maybe 1 significant catastrophic loss in their life. And so I see the project manager evolving into more of like a guide, more of someone who educates the customer on how things go because they don't know how it goes. And so that ability to be a tour guide is probably a little bit too more of a kind of a throwaway term, but I think that you're probably picking up what I'm putting down, that it's someone who can come alongside. And, you mentioned that you have these interesting medical professionals in your family. Me too, actually. And I love it when, I don't know about you, if this happens in your family, but like the medical professional people in my family, they love to be the one that explains the board game. They just love teaching me the board game, right?
Right.
Because they just love the intricacy of how everything fits together. And I find that especially if they've learned that to have fun, everyone has to have fun. Like if you want to have fun, everyone's got to have fun. And so to come in and with the right amount of empathy and the right amount of professionalism and the right amount of tact to come in and say, look, I realize this is a terrible situation, but we have an opportunity where we can take a very kind of white glove experience where we can guide them through this experience. And as they look back in hindsight, they can say, man, they really helped me out. There was a lot of crossroads where they could have gone shady, but they chose to really walk me through this and do an honorable thing. So and that's where, we have the data that shows that, in the recent years, over 60% of new entrants into the industry are women. And we'll talk about enabling technology, but I also think that enabling technology is removing some of the barriers that are commonly referred to like stereotypical kind of male endeavors, male activities. And when you pair, women who I think we can all agree probably are more oriented to taking care of more of that compassionate relationship side type experience, and you bring that into a company like yours, Keegan, who care about not just the service, but the experience of being serviced. Man, I think it's just it's just ripe with opportunities and referrals and loyal customers. And what's your reaction to that?
No, we have, and I won't name names here, because I don't want to blow up their ideas, but we work with a high-end insurance carrier, and they actually are thinking about that too. And we had conversations with them because you're right, a homeowner, policyholder, commercial, residential, whatever. This is probably the first and only time they've ever had a loss, and they don't know what to do. And it's a crazy situation. And they have all this stuff being thrown at them. Their livelihood is in disarray, and it's just a chaotic experience. And this insurance carrier is thinking about putting in place, and again, they're a high-end insurance carrier, a concierge service to help for the sole purpose of walking the person, being the one-stop shop that they can call for any question on the claim, right? Oh, hey, who is this textile company? What do they do? Like, what do they do versus the contents company versus the mitigation versus the asbestos abatement? Why are all these people doing this? And I've never had this before. Why isn't this going quicker? I saw on HGTV, they put a house together in 30 minutes and, all these questions. And I've actually done some primary research with Northwestern University on the customer journey, the moments of truth, and for homeowners, and we just did it for homeowners because it's a easier population to survey, who had a loss. They've never been through it, and they really did not know where to go at the beginning. There was kind of like a deer in a headlight type thing. So
Interesting. One of the books that we wrote, we released this book last fall, and so I got it right here. It's called Winning with Workers, right?
Yep.
And if there's one thing that we're passionate about, we like people-powered businesses, industries where it is people who show up and do the work. And what we've learned is that those people are changing. Their preferences are changing. The way they think about, particularly being supported and guided, the way they think about confidence and being confident in the role is different, and sometimes the language that they prefer to work in is different. But one of the things that we identified in that book is 8 pillars. You could identify more, but we really narrowed it down to 8 pillars, and we said where we see these pillars in play, we see thriving workforces, or at least companies who seem to be getting outsized results with the workforce as compared to companies that have ignored those pillars. And one of those pillars, we titled it Build a Bionic Workforce. And so bionic referring to, take a human and kind of enhance them with technology and systems and to be able to get more productivity out of them, I think get more buy-in out of them. And when we were thinking about what would be a great company to spotlight, I thought of you. And so I appreciate you taking time to read the chapter. What was your impression? What stood out?
Well, funny of you to ask. So our industry, just like every other industry, is evolving quickly, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned to you last time we spoke, this episode from Planet Money, The Future of Work Looks Like a UPS Truck. I don't know if you listened to it, but
I got into it.
went back to that, and that aired May 2nd, 2014. So that was 10 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was looking back 10 years for that industry, right? And they said by partnering technology with individuals, they were delivering 100% more packages during a day during peak season. So like during the holiday season. So they went from 100 to 150 packages per day to 200, right? And since that has come out, they have UPS and other logistics companies have introduced robotic AI loading of trucks. So imagine, so now instead of going out and be able to do one truckload, they're doing 1.5, 2 truckloads, right? The same person, right? So, in our industry, 10 years ago, you were hand sketching a room for Xactimate. Now the sophisticated people, maybe they took their laptop out to the loss and did it right there on the laptop. But now our technicians are taking a 360 camera. They're standing on one side of it, pressing a button, standing on another side of it, pressing a button. And, minutes to hours later, they have a full detailed sketch that's very accurate. And the best part about that is we talked about consistent customer experience, and think about this for the billing or the insurance side. No matter who you send out to that loss, if you use that process, you're going to get the same exact result. Okay. So like you were saying, the technician, the skills of sketching used to be important. Hey, do you know how rooms are laid out, and sketching and doing this stuff in Xactimate? Now the technician or the project manager, whoever's there, is more interacting with the customer, interacting with the insurance carrier, saying, hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's our plan of attack. Here's how long this is going to take. They're able to spend more time on those value-added services than we were able to 10 years ago, by far. And if you look forward 10 years, I think that we're just going to continue with AI to really leapfrog and be able to take very quick measurements, have it spit out, hey, not only is this what the room size is, but here's what our next steps are, our recommended steps based on the category of water, what the materials impacted, the amount impacted. And it could probably spit out hey, here's a very accurate estimate, right? So then the policyholder and the insurance carrier can have a better conversation, especially as insurance deductibles increase. They can say, hey, this is going to be below my deductible. This is going to be above my deductible. Should I file a claim? Should I get insurance involved? There's a whole bunch of things that hopefully will enable. So it even furthers that conversation, and having that frontline worker, as we call them, technician, project manager, have more of those soft skills, right? And to your point, into the medical field, explaining why we're doing what we're doing, what's the benefit, and kind of giving an accurate assessment of here's what's going to happen.
So let me ask you a follow-up question, and I maybe you can give us a little bit of your method, because I think the average person in this industry recognizes that there are new things, there's new tools. But what I've also recognized is that so many individuals are so, let's call it, just engrossed in just running the business. Michael Gerber, I think, was attributed with when he said, you have to move from working in the business to on the business. And sometimes I'll say, you need to be able to kind of put the periscope up, like up periscope, and look around a bit. Because it's clear that what you are doing is you have some type of a method for being able to, you brought tools, use the term tools, like I brought tools with me to the business. But those tools are certainly valuable because, as you've encountered challenges, obstacles, you've been able to reach for the respective skill or tool. But one of the things I've noticed is that companies that seem to be very technologically savvy, they seem to have three gears that they have refined. And I wonder how you think about this. Is that I think underneath these three gears, they've created enough operational, let's call it enough of an operational rhythm. We use the term in the book. They've learned how to resist operational entropy. So they've been able to get above the business, even just a little bit. And so they actually have the airspace to recognize a solution to a problem that they have. They have figured out how to implement it, and then they figure out how to optimize it and maintain it. Because I've seen companies that don't have the space to even have airspace to recognize a solution. And if they do recognize it, you have the ability to actually implement it effectively. And once they have implemented it, I find that there are fewer yet who know how to maintain it and then optimize it. And by optimize it, I mean really get the horsepower to that sucker. How do you think about that? Because as a very tech savvy leader, and also as a very tech savvy group of companies, you've obviously had to be able to get the business to a point where you can kind of get your head above it. You've obviously been able to recognize and kind of triage, back to medical, right? Triage opportunities, and then you've had to implement and you've had to optimize and maintain. Tell me about how you approach that, and maybe give me it from as the advice of someone who's just stuck in it right now, and they're like, man, I don't even have time to think about this stuff.
Yeah. So first of all, it's a lot easier now to get started than at any other time, right? There are great tools in our industry that can help you. And I know a fellow PuroClean franchisee just implemented their first set of tools, and they're like, wow, this is amazing, right? So start small. I would say for anyone, start small and just embrace it a little bit. See if it can help you. And it's not about making gigantic, system wide, everything has to be systematized, right? Just do one piece and see the benefits from that one piece, and then say, okay, well, great. That made my life a lot better, or gave me an hour a day. If it gives you 1 hour a day to do something else, or kind of get out of those weeds, like you were saying, and get up a little bit to see what's going on, that's huge. An hour a day is huge. I mean, I don't even know how many, that's a lot of hours a year.
Yeah.
So, and then you just keep incrementally doing that. So that's how we did. We said, hey, what's out there that can help us sketch? Okay. We use DocuSketch. Other people use Encircle, Matterport, whatever. At the end of the day, it's a way to automate and standardize your sketching process, because that was a pain point for us. And then we use, other systems to help us, or other technologies to help us. And I think if you do that and you just start down the path, you're gonna see that things are, one, they're easier than you think they're gonna be. Two, they'll help you. Maybe they won't help you as much as the salesperson says they'll help you, but they'll help you more than maybe you thought they would help you. And
Yeah.
just get started, and then see where it fits in your processes, and go from there.
So let me ask you what I think our most common follow-up question. How do you get your staff to use it?
Well, this industry is full of young people. They are used to mobile devices and everything, right? So they embrace it a lot. I think a lot of people, even our older workers, embrace it more than you think they might, right? A lot of people self-reflect, and as an owner or someone, you might say, oh, this is a pain in the butt. I wouldn't want to do this. But if you introduce it, and especially if you introduce it to new people, they don't know anything different, right? If I have our people who use DocuSketch. If I told them to go sketch it, they'd be like, this is dumb. Why don't we just use the camera thing? So it takes some, you gotta forgive yourself a little bit. It's not everything's going to work right the first time. You got to practice it. You got to refine it a little bit. It's okay. Give yourself some leeway to screw up here and there. If you're running a business, I'm sure you've screwed up somewhere along the line. I know I have. So
Yeah. And what about, you referenced it. I mean, so you have this contrast of young workers, kind of this groundswell of young
yeah,
workers coming in. We see that,
yep,
Gen Z, kind of 13 to 24, most demographers would say, they most of them don't have a memory of a version of the world without instantaneous answers, easy, user interface, applications. And so you're right. I think where we see a lot of people kind of get gummed up is oftentimes the people who own the process, or let's call it, are accountable for the outcome of the process, are more senior staff, and senior meaning been there for longer.
Yep.
But have you found any effective methodologies of being able to get some of your more experienced staff to not just begrudgingly use the technology, but actually become champions and proponents for the technology and even optimizers of the technology? Have you found anything has really shifted mindsets or behaviors, Keegan?
It's very individualized, right? Because you're right. There's a lot of individuals in your company that are responsible for one piece or the other. And some of we've gotten all of them on it, and it's like an individual journey for a lot of people, right? So some people may embrace one thing or another, but I think they have all embraced, and we lead, right? So we say this is a good tool. We think it will help. We're not doing this to make your lives harder. We're doing this to make your lives easier and bring more value to you, have a better job experience, right? Because who wants to sit there in a burnout house and try and sketch it when you can just go in and get measurements electronically or whatnot, right? So
Yeah.
we want it to be a better experience for them, and they understand that. And when you're leading that way, I think people jump on board the train a little bit easier than if you yourself are like, oh, they're making us use this dang thing. I don't know how it works, right? Type thing. But yeah, and we encourage people to mess around, and it's okay to fail, right? It's okay to, hey, I tried this and it didn't work out, so I had to go do it this way. Okay, cool. That's how you learn a lot of times.
Right. Let me it made me think about some research that we did. So prior to winning with workers, we published a book called Why Workers Quit. So it's like massive. It's like the largest workforce study ever done on property restoration. And one of the things that we asked, we of all the research, it's one of my favorite questions. And we kind of say, kind of tongue in cheek, it's a very anonymous survey, but we say, why did good people in your company quit? Like regrettable turnover, right? Like, why did good people in your company quit? Not you, right? But confidentially, like when someone walks out the door and you're like, oh no, we're screwed. Like, I can't believe she packed it in, right?
Yeah.
And they list all these reasons. But among those most common reasons, I mean, the most common reason is management. I don't think that will surprise you, right? We've all heard some form of the adage that, people don't quit companies, they quit managers, right? But one of the most common things, especially for like tip of the spear field-based staff, it's just tedious work,
Yes.
right? Just like almost like you made that interesting comment where you said, you know, young people introduce technology day one, they don't know any different. Like for them, this is just the way you do the job. And so you show them the manual process and they're like, that's crazy. It's like learning that your parents never buckled you in the back seat of the car, right? It's like, what? You know? Um, but at the end of the day, we're talking about tedious elements of the role where tech savvy workers are just looking at the industry, or they're looking at their manager or boss, and they're like, you want me to do what? Right? Like there's not a better way to do this. And they have to keep coming at it. And it's just like, sometimes I refer to it as just like just getting paper cutted to death, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so how do you think about that? Because you've got young workers, you're a very progressive business owner. What do you think about that? Like this idea that workers quit often because they just think that the business is just tedious and old school, and there's so many what seems like just unintuitive steps. Well, what's your reaction to that?
So one thing I highlighted here in the chapter is for individuals who grew up with seamless and bug-free experiences on apps like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, encountering poor software in their professional lives can be infuriating, right?
Mhm.
And it can be. So, and I would challenge all the software manufacturers in this industry to get it together, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of we have some really good software in this industry, but we have some other software that's just, it's just not there yet, and it's not just this industry. There's a lot of industries. Who was it I was talking to? Something. Oh, I was trying to pay my medical bill online and for my daughter, and they said, "Oh, yeah, you're not on there. You have to write in that you need to add her to do," and I'm like, "What? I need to do what to pay my daughter's?" I'm like, so my famous thing is I'm like, Google, they make this car that drives itself, right? And I have to write. So that's kind of what people's frame of reference is now, right?
Yeah.
The seamless, bugless things that just work. And when they don't work, they're like, this is dumb, right?
Yeah.
Because they have this experience. So it's very interesting. So I have young children, and my daughter, who's 7, she will not talk to you on the phone if you're not on FaceTime. To her, the phone does not work. She'll just hand it back to you and be like, "It's broke. I don't know. It's broke. I can't see grandma," right? But that's the experience that people um are living with. I was thinking about that, and I remember when I was younger, our TV went out, like the picture went out, but you could still hear the sound. And my grandfather was like, "Yeah, just listen to the sound. It's like a radio." And I'm like, "No, it's broke." Right? So yeah, if you have a broken TV, it's infuriating, right? And when you have manual processes that don't make sense to younger people who live in this world of self-driving cars and chat GPT and all this stuff, when you can't flip a picture on your CRM, it's like, what the heck are you guys doing? Right? I mean, it's just I've seen it and I've experienced it myself. It's just so infuriating. So I
Yeah.
would challenge all the software providers out there in this industry to really get it together and really hone in and focus on the customer experience, the user experience on all these systems, apps, websites, whatever we're using to do our jobs.
Yeah. Hey, that is a call to action. And I rub shoulders with a lot of the software vendors and technology vendors. And in the world of economics, it's all about incentives, right? And all about trade-offs. And I think that one of the things that I often comment on, something that was very impactful for me, is to really study the preferences that are hardwired, and I really believe they are now hardwired into the average consumer for that are established through interacting with consumer technology. And the statement that I think I picked it up from somebody was that, just list the big 5, the Facebooks, I guess the Meta now, the Amazon, the Googles, the Apples, etcetera. They'll pay collectively, tens of thousands of engineers, well over $250,000 a year to develop cutting edge technology that serves, and establishes an experience of knowledge retrieval and ease of use. And they bring those expectations, they bring those experiences with them. I know how one of the things we often talk about is forget about the way that Ernie or Sheila likes to train. When your worker is at home helping his uncle on his hot rod or making sourdough bread, how do they use their mobile device to access knowledge? Because if the way that you um, equip and arm staff with something like knowledge or elements of their job, if it's not similar to the way that they would do things in uncompensated, unmonitored time, you are choosing the path of most resistance. And
Yep.
and I think that I'm always fascinated with individuals like yourself, Keegan, who didn't come from in the industry, and not to discount people who've come up. There's a lot of multi-generational companies, and no question, there's a lot of inside people that I think run tremendous businesses. But there's also value of kind of being almost like an outsider, almost like an inside outsider, and coming in and bringing with you, in a sense, a knowledge of other ways that things can be done. When you came into property restoration, I know it's but 10 years ago, but do you remember some examples of things that, because you worked for some pretty high performance company.
Yeah.
What was John Doerr's book? It was like High Performance Management or something like that. Can't remember what it's called, but it was like
Yeah.
his playbook for Intel.
Yeah.
Something like that. What were some examples of things where you, even 10 years ago, you came in and said, this is so old school?
Oh, I mean, well, the lack of systems. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, literally the lack of there were a lot of people running their companies on Excel or just a hodgepodge of Word docs and this and that, right? One thing that we embraced pretty early on, and everyone was like, this is groundbreaking, right? And probably a few years ago, we started using a lot of outsourced administrative people from the Philippines, virtual professionals, right? And they're like, this is groundbreaking. I'm like, I did that at Intel in 2000, 24 years ago. We were using, people in low cost geos that are great people that will outwork a lot of people here. They get up every day and they want to bust their ass to do a great job. And people are like, oh, that's so crazy, right? And I'm like, no, I've been 24 years ago I did this, right? So now we have a whole administrative staff in the Philippines, and with COVID and with Teams and the tools we have now, it is so much easier to work, remotely. And our offices are geographically diverse. So I said, you're remote to somebody all the time anyway. Our Dallas team, is remote to our Detroit team, even though they're in the United States. It doesn't matter where we're working now, right? As long as we're getting the job done and whatnot. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. I love that in here you say, hey, listen, a lot of knowledge-based roles such as call centers, bookkeepers, accountants, accounts receivable, accounts payables, are ripe for AI. And I would continue to watch that space and have people in this industry embrace that as much as they can. So again, it's not to eliminate jobs. It's when you get that surge, right? And my good friend is gonna kill me for this saying this. When you have this surge of work come in, and you can have an AI receptionist answer 700 calls a day without missing a beat and provide excellent customer service, then that's a win, right?
In any language, right?
In any language, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's just a win. And same thing with bookkeeping and a lot of these things that, yes, they're necessary, but they're not really adding value to the end customer, right? The end customer is looking for you to restore their property. Okay. They don't care if on what your P&L looks like for your company. They just want to have their property restored. They want to know the process. They want to be in the know. They want to have a seamless process because they've never done this before and their life is a mess at that time. They don't care about all the other stuff that goes into running a property damage restoration company. And if you can focus your efforts on that, I feel that you're going to be successful.
Keegan, and what I've observed, and I observe it in this conversation, is that when you have an open mind, right? When you have an open mind to think about, but you do need, like, even open mind, like you need to be able to have, I think you'd agree, you need to ultimately have these outcomes, these North Stars. And it's interesting because you've set your North Star at providing this great customer experience. I think that's tremendous. I think that is, and I don't get the vibe at all that's that's like a kind of a a jest. Like that's, I think, I've interacted with you in person. I think it's a real genuine desire of yours. Jensen Huang, he's this disruptor, right? He's the CEO at NVIDIA, right? And
Mhm.
I was listening to, I'm sure a bazillion people have listened to it, but he makes this comment. He said, AI is not going to take your job. Pause for effect. A human using AI is going to take your
Yeah,
job.
that's right.
And no question, if there's one thing I've observed in industries like this and other industries we're involved in, is that oftentimes, especially in industries that are largely commoditized, we're meaning like we do a lot of the same service, we use a lot of the same equipment, we use a lot of the same consumables, we're hiring from a lot of same talent pools, is that if you're willing to just break out of a mindset or think differently or just express a little bit of openness, um, you can very quickly gain a significant competitive advantage. What do you think of that?
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be. We all have the standards, right? The IICRC standards. We all have the guidelines from the RIA, and we have the same equipment and everything. It's going to be the customer experience. It's going to be the customer who gets, or it's going to be the contractor who gets the customer what they really want and desire in a consistent manner, right? McDonald's is the best selling hamburger cheeseburger on the planet. Objectively, it is horrible, right? It's just a gut bomb hamburger, but it's the best selling because it's consistent. You can go to a McDonald's anywhere in the world and you know exactly what you're going to get, and people line up for it out the door. And that's what people want. They want consistency. So when someone calls PuroClean, they know they're going to get an estimate, that looks like this. They know they're going to get this set of documents. They know that their customer is going to go through the process of, hey, we're going to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, how long it's going to take, what it means to them, et cetera, the whole process. So if you can standardize and make that a consistent customer experience to all of the customers involved in the claim, then I think you'll get that repeat business because they just are, it's easy. They know what they're going to get. And they say, okay, I know what I'm getting. Let's do that versus the unknown.
Keegan, I want to move to kind of like a rocket fire round here. It's easy for me to kind of come to mind all these examples of individuals like yourself who I've come across in the industry who have made some strategic decisions to kind of just take something like estimating or take something like project management or take some and just kind of invert it and just say, well, what does it look like from this angle? And it's amazing how just sometimes taking something that where we've always looked at it from one perspective, you just come at it from a different vantage point. But what I've heard you talk about is that no question, I think you have to be on the lookout for cutting edge solutions. Then you have what I would say is it sounds like you have a practice where you have a goal in mind of creating a great customer experience, creating standardization across your locations. And to that end, you're actively looking for outcome rooted technological solutions to keep driving forward. I think sometimes people become resistant to technology when it's just like technology for the sake of technology or like change for the sake of change, as opposed to like change that's rooted in something we're trying to move on. So I'm curious, you have 10 locations. That means you got a lot of people wear your logo. So I'm sure team members bring things to you, say, hey, Keegan, have you seen this? Let me ask you just very concisely, how do you communicate to your team that you are, that you guys are trying to be a tech forward company, without every shiny hammer landing on your desk as a suggestion? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And we're very cognizant of that, right? Because we don't want to just be jumping at the flavor of the day and
Right.
say, oh, look, this came out, let's try this. This came out, let's try this. But we're always on the lookout for new technology. We do, I think you have it in here. We do a lot of the demos, sign up for low stakes software demos. We're always on the lookout for what's out there. And we test it with people. Before we roll it out, we do a test. We say, hey, Dylan, take this and let us know what you think. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And do you think it's something that we should roll out? So a lot of times it's not me rolling out the technology. We said, hey, we saw this. We thought it might be good. We sent it to Dylan. He said, it's awesome. So let's roll it out a few more times, right? And then we roll things out that way. So we get an organic kind of following with it, and let the team decide. And if they come back and they say, yeah, this sucks, we say, okay, fine. And we say, well, we tried it, but it's not for us for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
And it's that kind of window shopping experience that I think is so critical, because there's just so much of this stuff coming at us, right?
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. Okay, so many more things we could talk about, Keegan. I'm a big fan of what you and your partners have built. But someone is been tracking with you. They're following along, and they come to this place and they say, "Hey, I need some concrete guidance." Unlikely that they'll be able to just sit down for lunch with you with a pad of paper. So this is kind of that like pad of paper coffee shop moment with Keegan. So what's one thing from your experience? What's one thing that you would recommend leaders stop doing if they want their team to get more use out of the technology that they provide to them? One thing they should stop doing. It's like, stop doing this if you want your staff to actually use the technology you're giving them.
Sure. So, and I've seen this. So I would say, stop thinking that the world is going to just stop and not continue to change and evolve, right? Because people say, well, I put a new system in, that's it, I'm done, right? 20 years from now, I'll talk to you later, right? No, it's have a mindset of things are going to change and evolve. And if you look at over the last 10 years, there's been major advancements. Over the next 10 years, there's going to be major advancements. And if you're stuck in the past or have a resistance to change, you're not going to be able to get the gains from those advancements.
Yeah. That's a good perspective. Yeah. You know what? I think that's sound advice. Let me ask you another question. So kind of the opposite of that, the inverse of that is, what's one thing you'd recommend that a business owner in this industry starts doing to integrate just best-in-class technology into their operations?
Well, kind of the inverse is being open to it, but I think you have, and I talked about that. Sign up for the low stake software demos. Go to conferences, meet with know-how. Talk to a lot of people and see what they're using. And I mean, I just had a demo with a company yesterday, and I was very closed-minded to it, and I said that we don't need this, right? And then we went through it, and I asked a lot of questions, and I'm like, okay, it might be on the radar, right? So look to see what's out there, and don't be afraid to look at different things and try different things, and really understand, like you were saying, really understand what you're trying to do at the end. At the end, this will help us get closer to our goal of whatever it might be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, hey, I mean, I'm the guy, with teams doing the demos, right? And if I was to almost just play the other side of the field, I would say, look, the demo's at 4 p.m. Schedule your team to say, show up with coffee at 3:30, and let's just have a conversation. And don't say, hey, what did you hear about this tool? It's like, what is something in our operation we're trying to streamline or
Yeah.
unlock or improve? Or where are we getting really just kicked in the shins? Perfect. We're all aligned on that. Okay, so we understand that this tool claims to improve this area that we're struggling with. So let's go into
Yep.
it with, frankly, with those lenses on, and because trying to wrap our brain around like where a solution can be like wedged in to our already what is often convoluted process. Okay, two last questions. Long-term bets, right? So are there any long-term bets you'd recommend leaders invest in that you say the dividends will come, but you got to make an investment, time, capital? Like what are some of those long-term bets that you recommend leaders make, where they may not see immediate returns, but if you make the investment, you're going to see the compound returns over time as it relates to technology.
Well, one of the things, I mean, obviously training, but what we've done is with our outsourced workforce, we have spent, and I tell people, I say, hire a virtual professional. Do 1 hour of training a day. If they can take one little thing off your plate a day, by the end of the year, you have so many things off your plate, and you can then focus on, but understand what you're going to do with that time. And if that's go to the coffee shop for an extra 2 hours a day, that's cool. Just understand what you're going to do with that time, and hopefully you're going to put it into some value added stuff. But it's all about training. If all of us in this industry would take, I don't know, an hour a week, right? That's 52 hours a year, an hour a week, and spend and train, we'd be so much further ahead in all of our businesses.
Yeah, that's very well said, and I certainly agree with that. And I know what it's like to get just in the minutia of the day to day, but it's always amazing that when you dig into some of these things, how many levers and moves and optimizations are just waiting there in the stuff you're paying for, right? It's amazing. Last question. So all of this boils down. I made this comment earlier that at Know-How, our mission, like what gets us up in the morning is we believe that meaningful work is helping service companies. You use this term kind of brand promise, comment that's I'm very familiar with from like my time. I spent a decade in franchising, and I kind of pull this term from like Bern Harnish, brand promise. Our mission is to help service companies deliver what they promise with confident workers, and attracting workers. What we've learned is that young workers today, they want to work in cool places. They want to work in places where there's cool tech and they're going to learn things, and they've got, conversation material for their, meeting up with their buddies at the pub or whatever on the weekend. If you could teach or advise leaders in this industry just one thing about attracting and retaining talent in this industry, what would it be, Keegan?
So I 100% agree with you. One, the first thing that we found is that have a mission. So our mission is to help people affected by disasters. And that's what we're doing. And a lot of people like that. I want to help. I want to be a help to somebody. Imagine coming to work, just, like going back to the medical profession. It's helping somebody. That's a very noble profession. Our profession is a very noble profession. We are there, and we are the first person to get them on the road to recovery, right? For their house, right? I know human lives are much more important than things, but this is people's livelihoods a lot of times, their homes, and it's very important to them. So one, we work in a very noble profession. Two, this is a career. This is not just a job. Maybe my mind has shifted over the last decade or so, but I feel like 10 years ago, people felt that this is a job, and we've found ways with training, with technology, with whatnot, that this can be a long-term career. This is not just hey, in between whatever school and your real job. This can be a real profession. And a lot of people have made great livings at this and do honorable work every day. So I think putting those messages forward, and it's an industry with staying power. I believe it's going to be around for a while. I mean, I know there's a lot of uncertainty with all sorts of stuff in the world today, right? But I believe that in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there's going to be property damage restoration because stuff is happening. We're building more buildings, and the buildings we have are getting older and things happen. That's why we have an insurance industry. So this is a good place to be.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, very well said. That's I'm gonna cut that clip. I'm gonna hand it to the Restoration Industry Association, and it's just gonna play on repeat, right? Because
There you go. Oh,
but Keegan, I've been in the past. I've been the new franchisee, and I've
yep.
also been like the top franchisee. I've been like the top dog, and I've been the new guy, and I can just picture the PuroClean conference, and I can picture how many times that probably without you even knowing, you've inspired someone in that network. With being a very committed to the customer, committing to doing the job well, but also committed to being a very pioneering location. And so that's pretty cool. So much more we could talk about, but thanks for taking the time to kind of open up your playbook, to be generous and share a little bit with what we call this Restoration Playbook Podcast, a little bit of just kind of how you do things in your operation. I've learned a lot, and so thanks for taking this time today.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy the conversation, and hopefully I'll see you at the next conference somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you have it, folks. Another great conversation with a world-class operator, Keegan, a pioneer and a performance driver in the PuroClean network, someone who's figured out how to be able to bring technology into his business, not only to enhance operations, but to actually drive improvements in the customer experience that his teams deliver. If you want to read the long-form article associated with this podcast episode, go to R&R Magazine. And for other resources just like this, head to tryknowhow.com and check out our resources section.
KnowHow is an intuitive, mobile-first application designed to rapidly onboard new hires, upskill staff, and provide on-demand expert guidance for whatever task is next. Home to your company's proven methods, KnowHow ensures everyone has the skills they need to get the job done right. With time-saving features that make it a breeze for management to build, maintain, and translate standard operating procedures. It's time to ditch your outdated operation binders and dated, difficult-to-search systems. With KnowHow in their pocket, your staff have the how-to they need wherever the day takes them.